my mom came into the room and she's like, look at my phone. And then I couldn't see it, so I had to look at mine. I'm like, oh.
I can't bet against Tom Brady. I have the Bucks winning 31-27 and Tom Brady going to his 10th championship.
Yeah, and I really think the Clippers' chance to win the championship was last year. And they were up 3-1 against the Denver Nuggets.
Chris Paul is one of the most underrated players of all time. He's been the best player wherever he goes, and that includes with the Rockets.
You said you can't bet against Tom Brady, and as a Cowboys fan and what I just did last weekend, I am not going to bet against Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl. I mean, that's all I can really say. There's two of the top 5 players in the league, and they are very, very good.
Hello, I'm Taylor Hearn, and you listen to The Outsiders' Opinions with Kevin and Austin.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. And the NBA regular season is here. Still a weird feeling for me, Austin. But also, this means our predictions as well. And this one, I don't know which division or which conference you want to do because divisions don't really exist, as you were talking about before. And the conference, the West seems impossible. There's so many good teams. And then the East is so wide open. There's a lot for teams to make runs into that top seeding for the first time in a while.
Yeah. I mean, the East is going to be extremely difficult to predict, in my opinion. I think it's the hardest conference to predict. There's a lot of question marks regarding injuries, new roster construction, new head coaches, all at the top. And which conference do you want to start with?
I think we'll probably do East because I feel West is most interesting to keep people interested.
I think both are very interesting because I have no idea. I think I have more. I feel more confident in my West predictions than I do my East.
I feel confident in my top West. The bottom is where I'm like, well, this team's got to be. I feel is better. So we could do West. I'll let. Let's do West. I'm curious about that.
Okay. Do you want to start? Let's just go in fives. We'll just go in fives. You want to do your 15 to 11?
Yes. Okay, I like this. So 15 to 11, I have the Jazz at 15, the Kings at 14, Trailblazers at 13, Suns at 12, Pelicans at 11.
Wow. We're not going to even be close on some of these. I thought we were going to be a lot closer. I cannot believe where you have the Trailblazers. I think that's
really
a travesty. But
okay. All right.
We'll get to it. And I'm going to go a little bit slower because I feel like these are going to be really close outside of 15. I have 15 being the Jazz. Where did you have Jazz?
15 as well.
Okay. Yeah, I think they're the most clear 15. They're the only team, I think, in the West that I think there's no shot they make the playoffs. The West is too competitive for a team like that to find success this season. I don't think they're necessarily going to be built this season for a lot of success. My second team is the Suns. I have the Suns at 14. I know they have Jalen Green now. I know they have Mark Williams now. They still have Nick Richards. They have Grayson Allen. But I'm just concerned about their depth scoring. I'm concerned about their defense. I just think that having Booker as your true only point guard on the roster will be middling at best. Mark Williams is not the greatest defender in the world, even though he does get some stocks. Same thing with Nick Richards. Their wings are not the best defenders outside of maybe Ryan Dunn. I don't feel too confident in the Suns this season. My number 13, I got to go Pelicans. The New Orleans has dealt with so many injuries this season already. DeJounte Murray's going to be out for a while with a torn Achilles. They traded away CJ McCollum. Now they have Jordan Poole. Zion, always a question mark. They traded away Brandon Ingram. Their team looks extremely different, and I think this is going to be a middling season for them. Maybe they contend for a play-in spot, but I don't really see it with how things are currently stacking up in the conference because I don't know necessarily if they're going to be able to keep everyone healthy. Now, fully healthy with a healthy Zion, if Zion plays 70 games this year somehow, I definitely could see them being competitive in the West. But outside of something like that, I just don't see it happening. My 12 are the Kings. The Kings have made a lot of moves for elder statesmen in the league. They just signed Russ. They just signed Schroeder in the offseason. Obviously, they traded for Zach LaVine during the season. They're starting the season without Sabonis. He's supposed to be out the first week, which will hurt. I don't really like the signing. I think their shooting is too bad to contend in the Western Conference. That is extremely modern in nature. And then my number 11, the last team that does not get into any sort of after-season action. I'm not going to call it postseason because the NBA themselves does not consider it postseason, is Memphis. Memphis traded away Desmond Bane. Now, they do have some of the younger guys there that I do like. Jaren Jackson Jr., they have Ja, but just a lot of injury-prone guys. I'm worried about – Scottie Pippen Jr. is going to miss some time. I'm worried about their team with all the injuries that they've stacked up. Ja is a question mark for game one. He is going to play, but those question marks will be there always because their team is not necessarily the healthiest in nature. And I think that's a theme amongst most of the teams at the bottom of the West.
Yeah, I think a lot of when I think of the bottom, specifically in the West, is there are a lot of star players outside of the Jazz. Yes, there's Lauri Markkanen, but Kings have Sabonis. Trailblazers, to me, they're still building. They have young guys. Of course, they have Drew Holiday, but I see them trading Drew Holiday during the season. Suns have Devin Booker. Pelicans, there's Zion. It's kind of a mix. They have a lot of young guys. That's why I put them at 11. But the 12 through 15 to me just don't have a fully complete roster yet, and they need some time to do that. But if they're in the East, I would have them higher just because I think they're a lot. The East does not have many stars on their team because a star in the NBA can get you a lot of wins.
Yeah, I think you and I just disagree necessarily on the peak for some of these teams. I'll go into my 10 to 6, so this includes the entirety of the play-in. I'll just do the entirety of the play-in. Let's just do 4 and then 6. We'll just do 10 to 7. We'll just do the play-in teams, and then we'll move on from there. So at 10, I have Golden State. Now, we'll get into our postseason predictions and teams we have making the playoffs. And if you're at 10, you can still make the playoffs. But I have some concerns. They're old. And Al Horford is now their starting center. So they're an old team, old roster. I do like bringing back DeAnthony Melton. I do like some of the players on their team, Trace Jackson Davis. Obviously, you have Curry, who will deal with some injuries this year, as he always does. And you have Jimmy for the playoffs or the play-in this case. But I think that the age is going to get to them this season. I don't necessarily think you can have a roster with Draymond, Horford, Butler, and Curry all on the court and be the most competitive team in the world. But with Curry, you're always going to have a chance. And if I was in the play-in, this would be the last team I want to face because Curry could drop 50 on any team in the league. So I would not envy the position that this team is going to put a lot of people in by the time that it gets close to the end of the season. My next team is the Lakers. This is a team that was in the play-in last year and ended up making the playoffs. I'm worried about the defense. They added DeAndre Ayton, but I don't think that shores up anything on the defensive side. We'll have to see how Jared Vanderbilt plays. We'll have to see how they picked up Jake LaRavia. LeBron's going to miss the first month. And they're going to have solid offense with Rui, Luka, and Austin Reeves, but that sounds like the worst defensive three-man scoring output possible, especially with DeAndre Ayton. You throw one good defender in there and Jared Vanderbilt, and you're not going to be plugging holes in the Titanic. I mean, that just seems like a sinking ship on defense. So I don't really believe in the Lakers this year unless LeBron can come back and be a solid defender, which he hasn't been the past couple seasons. So I have worries about them being able to guard on any position outside of maybe power forward with Vanderbilt on the court. My number 8 is the Spurs. The Spurs are going to be good this year, but I do think they're still a young team that's going to get better as the season goes on. They're going to be without Fox for the start of the season, but Wemby's going to carry them far. And I think that they are still a year away from really making the leaps and bounds in progression as a team that we see, but I think Wemby will be an MVP candidate this season, especially when looking at his block numbers, when looking at what he can do on the defensive side of the ball, and considering that he will be one of, if not the most dominant paint presences on defense in league history. And I think that starts really this season. And then my number 7 is the Timberwolves. The Timberwolves made another Western Conference Finals appearance last year, and they're going to be competing in a tough Western Conference. But I think this is kind of where the wheels fall off a little bit. I know we had him in our NBA Finals or bust. However, I think the Timberwolves struggles kind of showed their face towards the end of that Thunder series, and I think more teams now know how to beat them.
All right. So you made a lot of good points. I'll go with my 10, and that's the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, if healthy, they would be a playoff team and make it to the 6. I just think they're putting a lot of pressure. Not only is Anthony Davis' health a question, I do think you have to start considering Derek Lively's health into question. And yes, that means they have Daniel Gafford, but this team is really built to be big with Anthony Davis. Point guard during the first half of the season is going to be an issue for me. I do think they have a lot of young guys that could do it. They do have D'Angelo Russell, but it's putting that all together. And Cooper Flag, I think, is going to be a great defensive player. It's just that offensive output. To me, there's a lot of questions with this team compared to teams above them, where to me, there's more solid foundation. But with the Lakers, I have the Lakers at 9, which you and I agree with. They have just a little bit of a foundation. I think what saves them is you have Luka and LeBron playing together. I know LeBron's going to miss the first week, but the Lakers are still figuring out this roster around Luka. And I do think Luka can grow into a better defender because he's been pretty bad the past few years. There was moments where he's shown that he could do it, but last year was kind of his first year of dealing with many injuries. And this is a year, I think, where he's gotten better in shape, but we have to see that and how he uses that endurance on defense. And then 8 for me is the Memphis Grizzlies. Yes, they did trade Desmond Bane, but I do feel they have a lot of guys that can still build a solid team around Ja and Jaren Jackson. And I think there's a lot more contributors that fit with the Grizzlies compared to the Lakers and Mavericks. Then 7 is the Golden State Warriors. Yes, they are an old team, but to me, that plays to they know how to make plays. They can really build off chemistry. I like the idea of Al Horford, but yes, he is old. And there's a lot that this team needs to prove, but I feel that they can really show that and compete for a high spot in the play-in. But when you get to the top 6, to me, that's kind of where I draw the line of like, these are teams that are definitely going to make the playoffs. They don't have to make the playoffs off one game.
Okay, I'll let you do your 1 to 6.
So my 1 to 6, my 6 is the San Antonio Spurs. You said they're a year away. I think this year is here, so I'm a little bit ahead of you on that. The 5 for me is the Los Angeles Clippers, and they're a team that they're older, but to me they're going to be great. I have them this low at 5 because I am concerned about age, and just I do think they're going to be able to do well when Kawhi is out and other players are out. But if Kawhi was healthy, then maybe you compete for that top 3 spot. The 4 is the Minnesota Timberwolves. I do think they still have another year before the wheels entirely fall off, and they're a team that has competed well during the season and, of course, in the postseason. And I think this year we see a lot of Anthony Edwards just continuing to get better. So they're at my 4. Then 3 is the Houston Rockets. They were pushing the 2 seed last year without Kevin Durant, and I do think they stay atop of the West with Kevin Durant, but they don't move too high because I think you have to expect that Kevin Durant misses games. So that's why they're at 3. 2 is the Denver Nuggets. I really love this reimagined roster for them. Cam Johnson, I think, is going to fill in well for Michael Porter Jr. Bruce Brown back for the bench, and they have more young guys continuing to grow like Christian Brown. And then, of course, number 1 is the Oklahoma City Thunder at 1 for the West.
Okay. My 6 is the Mavericks. I think their team is well built. While not having Luka on the roster definitely hurts, I think their team is well built. And even when they come back, from injuries like guys like Kyrie. I think they will establish themselves above the play-in. Their defense is going to be something to deal with. And if AD can stretch the floor a little bit, because I know he wants to play Lively or Gafford at center. AD does not like playing center, even though he does grab a lot of boards and is a great defender. They're going to be a defensive juggernaut, and I do like this team. 5 Clippers, we agree on them. We agree on both LA teams, as I find funny. Lakers at 9 and Clippers at 5. At 4, I have the Trailblazers. I think they could surprise a lot at being one of, if not the best defensive teams in the league this season. I think that Tuamani Camara will really show his faces here. Denny Avdija, Shaden Sharp. I think Drew Holiday. I mean, they have a really good roster this year, and I think a lot of people were underestimating them. I think they trade away Jeremy Grant at some point in the season, but outside of that, I really like how their roster is built. 3, I have the Nuggets. I don't think Jokic cares about the seeding in the playoffs. I don't think he cares. I think he just wants to stay healthy, and I just think he wants to get through the season figuring out the other teams and figuring out his team. Of course, they made a couple moves. They have new guys on the roster like Cam Johnson, so they're going to be trying to figure out how to incorporate him best into the offense. Number 2, I have Houston. Adding KD as a dominant scorer was something this team desperately needed. Losing Van Vliet, if they still had Van Vliet, I may put them above the Thunder at 1. But with that injury, I don't know how Reed Shepard's going to start the season. So I have the Thunder at 1, Rockets at 2. Now, my 2 teams that make the playoffs, so this is just saying who wins the play-in because this is important for our predictions. This does count. I have the Spurs as the 8 seed making the playoffs, and I have Golden State at the 10 seed making the playoffs. So the Spurs would be that 7 seed, and the Warriors would be that 8 seed come playoff time.
All right. So for that, in my plan, I have the Mavericks playing the Lakers. I have the Lakers winning that in that 9 spot. The Warriors playing the Grizzlies, and the Warriors winning that, so they get the 7th seed. And then I have the Lakers beating the Grizzlies to get the 8th seed in the playoffs. So my 2 playoff teams at the 7, 8, and 8th spot are 7 Warriors, 8 Grizzlies.
Okay. Let's move over to the East. I'll do my 15 to 11 this time first. My 15 is the Hornets. A lot of injuries. Too many concerns for me regarding how the roster is built, but I do like them. They have potential. There's a lot of teams that I think have potential in the East. The Nets are 14. How does Michael Porter Jr. do in a 1B scoring role? We'll have to wait and see. Does he stay healthy? 13, I have the Raptors. They added B.I., Brandon Ingram, which I think is interesting, but I don't know how this really meshes with the roster construction that they've had with Scotty Barnes. Number 12, I have the Bulls. I want to see how Montas Buzelis does this year. Does Vucevic get traded? How does Kobe White progress? How does Josh Giddey play? And then 11, I have the Wizards. I don't think the Wizards make the play-in, but I think they'll be fun to watch. And they trade CJ towards the end of the All-Star break before that trade deadline.
All right. So I have 15 being the Wizards. I do think they have a lot of growing talent, but it's kind of putting that all together and having that consistency. Then 14 with the Hornets is, I agree with you. There's a lot of talent on that roster, but to me, I just got to see them put it together, and I think they struggle putting it together once again, so that's why I'm at 14. Nets, they're a team that's young, and they're in that rebuilding phase. I like Cam Johnson, Nick Claxton. Now you have Michael Porter Jr. As you said, how does he fill that scoring role by himself? That's going to be an important question. 12, I have the Indiana Pacers. Yes, they have a lot of good teams, but I'm really curious, how well do they play without Tyrese Halliburton? That's my big question. And I think they struggle with that. Then 11, I have the Bulls.
Okay. I'm a little bit higher on the Pacers, and I think the answer to that would be Andrew Nembhard, but I'll let you go your 10 to 7.
Okay, so my 10 to 7 is the Raptors as well. I think they do just enough to compete in the play-in, but I share a lot of the same concerns with that. Yes, Brandon Ingram is a good player. Same thing with Scotty Barnes. But they don't have a lot at the guard spot, so how do they really make that work? 9 is the Miami Heat. They have solid players, but I do think they're undergoing kind of what they need to do without Jimmy Butler because he was a huge part of their success over the years. 8, I have the Atlanta Hawks. Then they have Kristaps, they have Trae Young, and they have a lot of young guys that I think could do a lot, but we have to see how they do it. And then 7, I have the Detroit Pistons.
Okay. That's another team that I am significantly higher on, but we'll get to that when we cross that bridge. My number 10 is the 76ers. Embiid's injury history is the most concerning, I think, in the league. And same thing with their age regarding Paul George. Jerry McCain is going to be out the first month of the season. You also have some injury concerns with some of the other players they have on that roster. My number 9 is the Heat. They're also starting the season without Tyler Hero. I do like the addition of Norman Powell, but when you have Norman Powell, Tyler Hero, and Andrew Wiggins is a great defender, but all those guys on offense are score first. So I think they're going to have some ball distribution problems. And then 8, I have the Pacers. So I have the Pacers making that top 8. I think Andrew Nembhard's a great player, and he will prove that this season as the primary guard on the roster. And then my number 7 is the Hawks. They added KP, which I do think that adds some defensive versatility at that center role. I think they've really struggled at that recently because I think he'll play center this year. But outside of that, I think Dyson Daniels will start to play better. Same thing with Zachary Ricochet, and same thing with Jalen Johnson, who they finally got healthy. I'll go to my 6 through 1. Or what were you going to say?
Yeah. Or do you want to do 6 through 1? But yeah, I'm very interested. Yeah, the Pacers could be good, and they do have Rick Carlisle, who's a fantastic coach. It's just really figuring out what they do without Halliburton.
Yeah. I do think that's a big question, and I don't know necessarily how they're going to answer. But I think it's a wait and see. And we've seen players under Rick Carlisle get better over the years, so I believe in his coaching ability. So my 6 is the Bucks. The Bucks have an interesting roster, and I don't necessarily know how I trust it at the moment. However, I do trust it enough to give them a non-play-in spot. They're not going to have Dame because of the injury to his Achilles during the postseason last year, so he's going to be out the entire season. Other than that, though, Giannis is a top 5 player in the league easily, and I think he'll prove that again this season. At 5, I have the Cavs. A little bit of a fall from grace for them. I think that the rest of the teams are getting better while the Cavs are going to stagnate a little bit. My number 4 is the Celtics. You're going to say, well, they don't have Tatum. Yeah, but they have so many guys. They just have so many guys. And I think that Joe Mazzulla is a top 5, top 10 coach in the league, and I think he's going to get the best out of his guys this year. And number 3, I have the Pistons. Cade Cunningham will be a top 5 MVP candidate this season. I think he'll be top 5 MVP votes. I think he'll average over 10 assists this year. I think he's going to be an amazing player this season. That's why I drafted him first in my fantasy draft, but that's neither here nor there. My number 2, I have the Magic. I think this will be the best defensive team in the East. And then my number 1 is the Knicks. Even though they have a new coach, I think that they will prove this year that because of the injuries to other top players in the East, that they're the best team in the East this year.
All right, so we are in agreement at number 1, but first, before I get to that, I have the Celtics at 6. Yes, they're going to be a non-play-in. They're going to be a full playoff team. They don't have to mess with the plan. They have great guys, as you said. I do think it's going to take some time for them to put all those roles together, but Jaylen Brown is a fantastic player. They have a good roster around him. 5 is the Orlando Magic. They're young, but they're going to be really good. I like Desmond Bane with them, and it's just kind of growing together as a young team. 4 is Milwaukee Bucks. Yes, their roster construction is unique, and I'm curious to see how Miles Turner plays with Giannis and just kind of what they do together. It should be really fun, and it's going to be a new Bucks team that you continue to grow with. 3 is the Philadelphia 76ers. I'm higher on them than you. Yes, Embiid does have injury history, but I do like the mix of young talent with older talent. The older talent being Embiid and Paul George, and they do have injury concerns. But I do think you'll get a good amount of games from Embiid. But Tyrese Maxey can pick up the load. I like VJ Edgecombe. Jared McCain will miss the first month, as you said, but once he gets back, I think that's going to be a huge part. That's a lot of young talent for me that can help with the aging talent, and they do have some solid depth pieces. So I do think they'll be really good. That's why I'm at 3. I have the Cavs at 2. Yes, they were amazing last year, struggled in the playoffs, and I think they do well again in the regular season, but not enough as the Knicks. I think the Knicks were already on this trajectory anyway of becoming that number 1 seed, especially given the injuries to other teams like the Celtics and changes with the Milwaukee Bucks. So that's why I have the Knicks as the number 1 seed.
Okay. So which side do you? Oh, sorry. So my 2 playoff teams from the 7 to 10 range are the Pacers at 8. I think the Pacers get in, and I have the 76ers at 10 getting in. So we both have the 76ers making the playoffs.
Okay. I have Pistons at 7, and then I have the Heat winning and making it to the 8th seed.
Where were the Heat ranked before?
They're 9.
Yeah, they're 9 for me too, but I don't have them making it. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay, which side do you want to start for the playoff predictions? Now, this does not count for points if you haven't watched this before, but it's fun, and I like to do it.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the East. I'll just go through my first round. I have the Knicks beating the Heat as a 1 and 8 seed. I have the Sixers beating the Celtics, the Bucks beating the Magic, and then the Cavs beating the Pistons.
Okay. I have the Knicks versus 76ers. I have the Knicks winning. I have the Magic versus the Pacers. I have the Magic winning. I have the Pistons versus the Bucks. I have the Pistons winning. And I have the Celtics versus the Cavs. I have the Celtics winning. I'll move into my second round. I have the Knicks versus Celtics. I have the Celtics winning. I think Tatum will be back by here and help them beat New York. And then I have the Magic versus the Pistons. I have the Pistons winning.
Ooh, okay. All right. I have the Knicks versus Sixers, and I have the Knicks losing in the second round, the Sixers advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals with Embiid. That would be a huge end to the run of memes. And then I have the Bucks beating the Cavs. So it's a Sixers versus Bucks Eastern Conference Final. I have the Bucks winning, and that the Eastern Conference Finals trophy would go to Giannis.
Okay. I have Pistons versus Celtics, and I have the Pistons winning with the Larry Bird Trophy, which is the name of it, going to Cade Cunningham.
Ooh, okay. Now I'll let you do the West first round.
So I have Thunder versus Golden State, and I have Golden State winning. I think Thunder may be injured by the time the season ends. It's hard to go back-to-back, and I think Golden State's going to be playing like it's their last chance ever, which it probably is. I have the Rockets versus Spurs. I have the Spurs winning. I think this is when the Spurs are going to start to heat up, and guarding Wemby is impossible. I have the Nuggets versus the Mavs. I have the Nuggets winning, and I have the Trailblazers versus the Clippers. I have the Clippers winning.
All right, so I have the Thunders versus Lakers. I have the Thunder winning. Then I have the Rockets versus Spurs, and I have the Spurs winning. I agree they're going to start heating up in the playoffs, and it's going to be Wemby's just kind of spotlight in the NBA postseason. Then I have the Timberwolves beating the Clippers, and then the Nuggets beating the Warriors. So that makes the second round of Timberwolves versus Nuggets and Thunder versus Spurs. I have the Nuggets beating the Timberwolves, and I have the Spurs beating the Thunder. So I have a Western Conference Finals of Spurs versus Nuggets.
That can't happen in mine because I had Nuggets versus Spurs here, and I have the Nuggets winning. Maybe that's a little bit of a teaser on your part. We'll see. And then I have Golden State versus Clippers, and I have the Clippers winning.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, so I'll let you go into your Western Conference Final.
I have Nuggets versus Clippers. I have this going 7 again, but I think the Nuggets pull it out again.
All right, you tease it again. I have the Nuggets versus Spurs, and I have the Nuggets winning. So I have the Nuggets going to the championship and facing the Bucks.
Okay. I have. Who is Jokic?
Yeah, Jokic.
Okay. And then for Nuggets versus Pistons, for me, I have the Nuggets winning in 5 and Jokic being named Finals MVP.
Yep, I have the Nuggets winning as well and Jokic winning Finals MVP as well.
We differ in a lot, but not the champion.
Yeah, I would love it if the Nuggets won, especially with just kind of what new coaching staff, new management. So it'll be really fun. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.